everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cloud Conversations, episode 49, I believe, as we possibly said earlier, which is absolutely amazing to do so many episodes. But I am so happy to introduce today's show, and thankfully I get to do the show with Peter, who I think we haven't done a show in quite a while, so it's really nice to do one with you. But how are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm doing really good, Kat. It's good to see you too. It has been a while, hasn't it, since you and I have worked together? I know you've been doing a lot with Azure lately, and I've got one coming up with Azure very shortly, which will be lovely because she and I have not done a show together yet, would you believe? And she's been with the show since early this year. So, but the stars have just not been aligned for her and I to do one together. So that'll be nice when it finally happens. But I'm doing great. I'm having a week off. I'm enjoying a little break from work, getting out for some walks, that sort of thing. And I'm delighted to have the privilege of introducing our guest on this episode, which is Jessica White. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I
guess you just said.
Yeah, indeed I have, but thank you for asking again. So Jess, you're a Microsoft MVP, a two-time Microsoft MVP in developer technologies, and you've got a lot of experience. You're very, very active in the community that we're all part of. And would you like to just go ahead and do a far better job of quickly introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers than I do before I butcher it?
Yeah, certainly. A busybody in the tech community pretty much sums it up quite nicely. I am a technical architect presently. I've been in the industry around 8 years now, so it has been a bit of a quick rise, to be honest. I run a conference, DDD East Midlands Conference in Nottingham, which celebrates the tech and people of the East Midlands. We've been running for 4 years now, had 2 events. We tend to do biannual. I also help coordinate .NET Knots, which is a .NET meetup in Nottingham. I do mentoring, and I tend to appear in lots of different things because I just get excited about talking to people and talking about technology.
Awesome, and that's how it's meant to work in this community, isn't it? And you and I met on a panel, didn't we, for a Microsoft MVP event a few months ago. It was an Allyship panel, I seem to recall, and from that we got chatting. And this is how a lot of our guests end up on the show. And we said we've got to get you on and have a chat. And here you are. So it's lovely to have you with us. So the DDD East Midlands Conference, though, I'm very interested in that, how that came into being and what it involves. Is it an in-person event, or is it virtual or hybrid? What's involved in that? Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, certainly. I can talk your ears off about DDD East Midlands. Awesome. So how it came about is not very conventional, if I'm giving the honest answer. So there wasn't really a big conference event happening in Nottingham. There's a huge community here, really, really big. There's a Tech Nottingham Slack, which has over 3,000 people on it. There's over 32 meetups every month. If you want to live off beer and pizza, you could do it at one point before COVID, quite happily. So my other half and I, Morton, we decided that we wanted to do something about it. But there was an other edge to this where both of us had looked into what it takes to run your own company, what it takes to do contracting. And we figured running a conference would give us some of this experience as well in quite a relaxed way where we weren't putting our mortgage or finances under risk. So we set up the company, we sorted out the accounting, and it gave us really good experience in that regard as well. In terms of the conference, it is an in-person. We do publish all of the talks onto YouTube with the permission of the speakers afterwards. But part of it is because we want it to be about where we're hosted and the community around here. We had a stall in the first year, which was encouraging people to move up to Nottingham, going, here's what you get for a house in London. Here's what you get for in Nottingham. So maybe you want to live up here. It's a lot cheaper.
That's a nice tactic.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. One of our sponsors came up with that. The interesting thing, I think, about DDD East Midlands is it is a general technology conference, but we do anonymous submission. So if you want to submit a talk, you submit your talk title and your bio, and that's all that our attendees see. And the attendees vote on what talks they want to see, which has had the really interesting result of we hold the right to change the talks by 20%. So 5 talks out of the total if we want to for diversity reasons. Not once have we had to do it. In general, the diversity split's been fantastic just through anonymous submission, which make of that what you will, but I think that's quite an interesting pattern of behavior.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a good idea as well, because you do, especially not even thinking about the diversity piece, but for those first-time speakers or, people who are relatively new to either being an MVP or even in the industry, there's no bias towards, I don't know if I'll go stick to the experts or the people who've done it for 20 years or, the popular kind of MVPs in specific, areas. So I think that's a really nice approach to encourage new speakers as well. There's less pressure, I think, and it's just based on your talk and the value that you can deliver.
Definitely. We've had fantastic results through it. So we do offer a mentorship program. We offer training as well for first-time speakers. So Fantastic Dylan Beatty runs a whole day workshop on how to do a presentation and how to deliver your content. Takes recordings of a short lightning talk and gives feedback on how the person presented. Really, really great work by him. But NDC London's happening next week, and 3 first-time speakers for DDD East Midlands Conference have gone ahead, applied for there, and have been successful. So it's done really, really well for first-time speakers.
Amazing. And what kind of speaking sessions are there? You said kind of generic technology. Is there anything specific, or is it just really anything that you...
It is pretty much everything goes. So because our attendees vote on what they want to see, we've had everything from design to testing to management talks, all sorts. We had a mental health talk this year who unfortunately had to drop out last minute because they got COVID. COVID gets in the way of everything good. But it is a complete mix. And the idea is that it's open to everyone. So we've had students, we've had people who are just interested in technology who want to come along who don't necessarily work in the industry, right the way to directors of companies who've decided to come along. So it's a really good mix of people.
Amazing. And what kind of, I guess, that entails creating this conference and founding and managing? Is there any challenges, or I just think it just seems such a big thing to do?
Well, the first bit of advice I'd give to anyone who's considering doing this is make sure that your relationship with your other half is really, really strong if you're going to do it with them. The first year it was just me and him, and it took up most of our lives outside of work, because this is a not-for-profit conference. It's done entirely voluntarily, funded by sponsorship. So yeah, it was really hard work the first year. The second year we took Rachel on board, who is a fantastic East Midlands recruiter. And being a recruiter, she's very good at talking to people on the phone, which is the bit of the job I hated. So she's been doing our sales, our marketing, talking to our sponsors, helping them with what they need to do on their stalls. And at that point, we did an exercise to split our responsibilities. So what needs to be done based on the previous year. We did a branding exercise as well to figure out what our tone of voice is, so it didn't come across too confused across all of us. And then this coming year, so 2023 is our next event. We've got, counting now. We've got 5 people in the organisation committee now to try and spread out that workload a bit more. But yeah, I think it is a lot of work, but it's incredibly rewarding. My advice would be not to do it with 2 people, but aim for 5 or 6 if you can.
Yeah, you've obviously learned a lot of lessons along the way, but it sounds absolutely amazing, and more power to both of you for taking that on and having the guts to do that. That's absolutely amazing. So where is it being held, Jess, so far?
It is held at the Nottingham Trent University Events Hall, which is an absolutely stunning building, and actually takes up most of our sponsorship costs, in all honesty, because it's got this beautiful glass ceiling that looks like whale bones, and it's very light. We take up 2 whole floors, 2 whole floors full of nerds. It's great. What's really funny is the last 2 events, the day after has been a brony convention, My Little Pony. Oh. So it goes from all of this tech stuff into lots of ponies everywhere, which I really enjoy. Yeah, it's a stunning venue in the middle of the city centre as well. So if people wanted to go out and have a walk between the talks, they can check out the city centre, which I'm a very big Nottingham fan. I've lived in quite a few places, but Nottingham's my favourite so far.
Awesome. How long have you lived in Nottingham?
9 years now. Yeah, a little while.
Fantastic. I hear good things about the city. I'm just racking my brains to remember if I don't think I've ever been actually to Nottingham. I've been to most places in the UK in my life, but I don't think I've ever been to Nottingham. But I shall have to come and check it out because I've heard good things.
I'll
But,
show you around. It's got a good little bohemian scene. It's not too big a city, but if you go up little alleyways, probably not the safest thing to advise, but if you go up little alleyways, you'll find coffee shops and bookshops and lots
yeah. It's good to have that local knowledge whenever you visit somewhere. I mean, my hometown's Newcastle, Newcastle upon Tyne, and I know that like the back of my hand. I know all the little alleyways and the shortcuts and all that. So I know what you mean. But the conference, super brilliant. And how long does it go for? Is it a day event or a 2-day event? Did you say?
It's a day event for the conference, but we've been doing pre-events just beforehand. So last year, Microsoft hosted a dinner for anybody who was an MVP or an influential tech person. To be honest, that just meant that you've done a talk somewhere. So
Yeah,
not a very high bar, but they had pizza and that went down very well. This coming event, we're talking about doing a dinner for the speakers, but also speed dating for mentorship.
oh wow.
Not actually dating, but we get people who want to be mentors, people who are looking for mentors, get some profiles together and give each person 5 minutes to do an introduction and hoping that that pairs people before the event so then they can get to know each other and grow the relationship from there. So we're trying to do small events around it now.
I love that idea of because I said in the past I would love to get into mentoring, but in terms of where to start, you don't want to do it to someone, I guess, a stranger. So I'm kind of looking on the Tribute apps and things like that to see if there's something I can do to help, or someone could help me, or and it's always hard. Where do you start if you don't already have all these relationships or someone reaching out to you? So I think that's such a nice idea to help people, get started with that. Because you do mentoring as well, don't you?
Yes, I do. So before we started recording, we're talking about getting into industry from different backgrounds. And I see it a bit as paying it forward. I do come from a slightly different background from most. Used to study neuroscience. So scanned brains, and it was a lot of fun. But I got into this industry through being introduced to it through who is now my other half. He was my friend at the time. He took me to a couple of events and meetups. I went, this is what this industry is. Here are some lovely people. It's not, you don't get locked in a basement with, people who don't like daylight, unlike you might think. It's actually really friendly and really social. And so I've been trying to pay it forward since getting a career in the industry. So I've got 4 mentees now who I walk through tech career progress to, if they're stuck on a bug, I'll try and help them out, right the way through to, I'm not really getting on with my boss. What do I do about this conversation? And I love it. I genuinely do. But you're quite right. It's hard to find mentees and mentors without having that network in place.
Definitely. It's interesting that you said the view of tech, because I've done a couple of videos on this where the view of technology is you're stuck in a little room and you're on your own. And my view was, it wasn't like that kind of startup perception. It was more, I just thought it was a bunch of old men in a server room playing with wires. Like that was what I thought technology was, which it probably was at one point, but it wasn't.
I can vouch for that.
But it wasn't the colorful young mix of everything and different types of people from different backgrounds and different types of technology. And so it's interesting, the perceptions of tech. I don't know, Pete, if you had any, because say long to maybe a little bit of time ago before you started working. We always slag off your age in this book, and I just don't know why. I'm so sorry.
Because I'm comfortable with it. I don't mind.
Yeah, that's probably why. I probably wouldn't if I thought you'd be upset. But yeah, did you have perceptions of tech or anything like that before you got into it? Or
I really didn't, because going back to how I got into tech, it was quite accidental. Like many people that we talked to on the show, it was a happy accident because I was quite rudderless. I was maybe 5 years into my career. I was working at a law firm in Newcastle as a golfer, delivering letters, doing shredding, photocopying, that sort of thing, all the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And I remember my first wage was £4,600 a year, and that was cool. I thought I was rich at the time because I was still living with my parents. But but had no exams, was never really academic, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was in the right place at the right time. That this law firm was starting to use technology that got word processors in to replace the typewriters, and they hired an IT manager. And I was really lucky in that the first IT person I met, the IT manager there was actually a woman, a lady called Deborah Hume. She was called at the time, she's Deborah Harewood now. And she took me under her wing. She was like, well, I'm starting to need some help with this. Would you like to learn this? And I was, hell yeah, I've got no other direction. So that was my in, and I never looked back. I took to it like a duck to water, and I think it gave me a really, really good start in my career, not only from the point of view of finding my passion. I mean, it took a long time to really realize it. I would argue that it's taken the last couple of years to get to the point where I am now, and I'm really, really into it. It was kind of like a job up until a few years ago, and then it became a career and a passion. So it's taken a long time. But also, I've never had that, and you'll know this, Kat, from the way we've talked quite openly about it. One of the reasons I've always been very, very passionate about women in tech is because I was recruited by a woman in tech back in the mid-90s, and that meant everything to me. She was just fantastic. So I've never seen why that should be an issue, and I don't understand why it's still a bit of is a real issue to this day, from the stories you've told me, Kat, that of things that have happened to you, which I just scratch my head and think, why does this happen?
It's quite interesting in terms of perceptions as well. Like you're saying, the perceptions of this industry, it kind of acts like a blocker before you get into it to some degree. But even being in this industry now, as I say, I'm a technical architect, but I actually kind of fell into this because I saw the interview came up, and I'd been doing the job. Like if I looked through the bullet points, I was definitely doing most of the job. But because most of the people I've known who have been tech arcs, and no offense to this, Peter, but they've all been white guys who are over 40. Yeah. And I thought, well, I can't do that then. And it was somebody sitting me down and having a conversation going, you are already doing it. What's stopping you?
Absolutely.
That made me go for it. And then, now I've achieved what I wanted to do. But I just had this blocker in my head, and I didn't even realize it was there.
It's sort of it's like a reverse unconscious bias, isn't it? It's in a sense, and I get that. I understand where you're coming from there. In a sense, I mean, I can't. I've not lived through that experience myself, obviously, because I'm an over 40s white. And to your point, you're entirely right. There is that perception that certain stereotypes in certain roles, isn't there? There's that perception that HR and marketing, for example, are predominantly roles that are taken by females. But and this is one of the problems we have. We need to change this perception and challenge that. And in the year 2022, it baffles and really frustrates me that we're still here, that we're still having these conversations. And I want to try and do more to borrow your phrase, pay it forward what I've learned, and see what we can do about that. So what would your view on that, Jess? How can we actually encourage the breaking of that bias and opening up?
I think there's a few different things here. Like, first of all, with the tech arc situation, I can understand why we're here now, because a lot of the job applications say 10 plus years within XYZ language or whatever you want, which immediately brings in that age barrier. And then with the age barrier, if you look at the trend for not only women, but multi-ethnic people with various disabilities, etc., that trend goes down the further you look back. So understandable that the only people who think they're qualified are people who have got that time in the industry, and because of the bias at that time, they tend to be white guys. So I can understand how this has happened. Representation is a huge thing for me. I am, well, I don't really have to be open about it because it's quite obvious visually, but I'm a multi-ethnic woman. I am registered disabled. That's the bit that's not very visible. And I'm young. There's no getting around it. For this industry, I am young and I haven't been in it very long. But at the same time, again, through discussions, cloud technology isn't that old. It's been around a very short amount of time. Most of the technology we're using right now, yes, the patterns are quite ingrained, but there's nothing that is like 20, 15, even sometimes 10 years old anymore. So why can't we keep up our recruitment practices much like we keep up with our tech?
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is please stop putting a list of bullet points on your job specs. There's so many studies around this where most women will try and get 95% of the bullet points, while a lot of men will go for 50% before putting themselves forward. So trying to be a bit more open about your recruitment would help quite a bit.
Yeah, I think representation is a big one. And it's important to see women, especially young women, doing it, because I had the perception of, it must just be a difficult topic for men that are old and they've got years of experience to be able to thrive and be able to work out this type of technology. And I think one of the things that I found is starting at a younger age, encouraging young girls to get involved or the idea of getting involved in the STEM fields. So I know we've talked about this before, where I was in school, it was a little bit more segregated. You do home economics, you would not do computer science, or that was what you would do as a girl, and even just you wouldn't even know what computer science was, or it wasn't that long ago when I was in school, but technology's kind of come a little bit further. So I think those STEM ambassador programs are really good as well. And when you mentioned with your kind of conference, you have people who are maybe students who are not even in the tech industry come and find out and see the representation and see the vibrancy and get rid of that kind of perception. I think that's absolutely great. So I think, doing things like that will definitely help as well.
As you mentioned, Peter, we talked about allyship, which is how we came into contact. And Kat, I'd love your view on this as well, being another woman in the industry. My experience is, because I am female and I'm very personable and I have the tendency to look after people, I get pushed away from tech and into management roles quite a bit. It's like, oh, you should apply for this leadership role. You'd be really good for this. Don't code anymore. You're a great mum. And the allyship there is really, really useful and key for somebody who isn't in my position to turn around and say, yes, but look at this other set of work that this woman has done or this person has done. This is not just their only skill set. And also this person over here, who is a white man, is also very good at the people thing. Why aren't you pushing him to be a mum? It's just a really bizarre dichotomy I've seen throughout my career so far. I don't know about you, Kat.
Yeah, I've had the management opportunities, definitely a couple of times where I've done that in the past, not in technology, but in another industry, and I absolutely hated it. I do not like taking responsibility for people. I don't want other people representing my work and reputation. I just want to be in control of all of that. So it's not for me. It's definitely not for me. And I've made it clear a few times. I've not had the allyship, so I've not had someone there with me, but I very much know I don't want to do it. So I will push back on it and say, look, I just want to talk about tech. Let me talk about tech, and I'll be happy with that. And it seems like that view of, it's not good for your career if you don't go into that leadership management role. That's the only way to grow and, do better. And in my head, I'm like, I'd rather not do better and keep my happiness in what I'm doing. If that's the case, it's not the case. You can do very well. There's things that you can achieve without going into a management role. But yeah, I very much have experienced that kind of push towards you tend to get a lot of things done, and you can look after people well, and that seems to be the route. But no, not for me. I've seen the I keep saying Allyship. I'm thinking of Ally.io is what I was just looking at before this podcast, so I've got it on the brain. But I have there's a few times where I have a conversation with a customer where I tell them, they ask me a question about technology and I answer the question I tell them, and they're not happy with that and ask to speak to someone else. who is typically, you know, a man who I'll get on the call and we ask the question, he'll answer the question. And he says the same answer as me. And the customer's like, right, okay, fine. And doesn't question it. And this happened recently. Like, it's a new thing that's happened, by the way, Pete. It's not one of...
Oh, no.
This happened a few times, but it has happened recently. And I thought, am I an absolute idiot and just don't know the... But it was the same thing anyway. You second guess yourself. And the guy, the consultant, phoned me afterwards, and he said, "Why did I join that call? Like you said the exact same thing that I said." I was like, "It's because," and I didn't really. He's quite new, so I didn't really want to like say it outright. And he was like, "Go on, say it. It's because I'm a man." I was like, "Yes, it's because you're a man. That's the only difference between us is that you are a man. I am a woman. We both work in the same role." You know, basically, yeah, he was really upset and angry. He's like, I've not seen it before, and I'm just so, it makes me so angry. And I was like, yeah, it makes me angry too, but I've kind of just get used to it. It's just, I think I'm a bit defeated with it, if I'm honest, because he was like, why don't you get your MVP award and just stick it in front of you and just say, here. I was like, I don't know what more I can do to prove that I know some stuff. What else can I do? Anyway, sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there. That's just because it happened the other day, so it's still fresh, on the brain.
I'm totally with your colleague there. I get so mad when I hear stories like this. Still, I don't know. Were the people in the workshop that you were talking to, were they sort of, well, were they older white men basically?
It was specifically a middle-aged white man. I don't think it was malicious. It wasn't intentional. It just happened because he didn't trust what I said, but he wasn't doing it as in like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I've had that done to me before, but he wasn't doing that. He just, you know, didn't realize it was that kind of ignorant bias.
And you think it was more of an unconscious bias coming into play?
Yes,
maybe?
Unconscious. That's it. Definitely.
Yeah. And,
I'd say as well, it's not always men. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Because I've had this recently as well, where there's two of us architects, and the people on the call, mix of gender identifications, kept referring to the fella. And again, same answers, but kept referring to the man on the call. So it does seem to be an unconscious bias, as you say, but it's not always men.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's true. I have had women who always go to the sales man in the room, who is not the resource to answer the question. So he has to say, sorry, can you just answer back to me? But yeah, I've had women. It's been more so men. But there's definitely been those in the room who just, it's the default that you go to, unfortunately. But it's not all doom and gloom. We do have, we have done better in the last few years anyway, in terms of representation of women. So it's, not all.
I think hopefully we're moving in the right direction. And I think with each generation that passes, hopefully that will become even more the case. But time will tell. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, though, is it?
Definitely. I did want to ask, so moving off the women in tech conversation slightly, and I wanted to talk, because you mentioned neuroscientist, and I read that and I said to Pete, that's so cool. That's such a difference, I guess, but it's the same, your logical thinking, I guess, that's related in tech to that. But what made you, can you tell us the story around that? What made you go from doing neuroscience to tech and how that worked out?
The first thing I'll say is neuroscience sounds a lot fancier than it actually is. It tends to be one of these things. So how I got into neuroscience is another story, which I won't go into today, but definitely will tell you about another time, Kat. How I got into tech, however. So I was doing my PhD, which involved, and I'm going to sound like I'm bragging here. I'm not. It's just fact. I was doing brain scanning, so fMRI scans and EEG scans. I was specializing in social learning for autistic children. So how we could change our teaching practices in order to help autistic children more effectively learn at the same level as neurotypical children. Really, really interesting work, in my opinion. There was a little sideways leap where I helped with a story, with a study on orangutans, which was really fun, comparing social learning of orangutans to rather hungover students. Went
Wow.
exactly the way you'd expect it to.
And one thing you've mentioned a couple of times, and I don't know if you're comfortable sharing your own disability story or not. If not, perfectly
quite happily to.
If you
again, as you say, it's representation, right? The more we talk about things, the more accessible and acceptable they become. So I've got Crohn's disease, fistulating Crohn's disease, which is a particularly nasty version where if you have trauma in your tissue, it can create these little holes, basically little tracks. So you have to be quite careful with it. I've had Crohn's disease for 11 years. I also have a slight heart condition, which doesn't help very much. So it's an invisible disability in that day to day I look fine, but I will have time off with either having to have operations or because I'm in too much pain or in fatigue. So I have to be, I've been very lucky with my employers, basically, because sometimes I overdo it and go, I'm sorry, but I'm just too unwell. And they've been very good about it. But yeah, that's what my disability is in this case.
Wow. I can't believe I guess it's quite difficult if you don't have a visible disability. People just overlook it and think, oh, you want a day off because you're tired or, whatever it may be. But it can really, because I've heard those stories from people who have those disabilities where, they seem fine, but actually their health is declining and, they really need that time.
The worst one for me, and feel free to edit this out if you want to. But when I was particularly ill, I actually dropped down to 6.5 stone at one point. I was so ill with this disease. But it affects your digestive system. So sometimes you need the toilet rather urgently. Yeah. And I do have a disabled toilet key for certain emergencies. Yeah. And it's one particular time I was running. I knew I didn't have much time left. I was running for the toilet in a Sainsbury's supermarket of all places. And this woman stopped me and started having a go at me for trying to go into the disabled loo.
Oh my God.
And I'm trying to go. I'm trying to explain to her. And then it was too late.
Oh my goodness. Well, she asked for it, really. I mean,
she got very embarrassed about the situation after that and was kind enough to go and buy me some clothes from the Sainsbury's clothes.
Oh, wow.
Because
that's
I was
awesome.
in quite a state. But these things do happen. And it's trying to explain to someone that you do have a condition. It's just that it's not that obvious.
Yeah. We have a disabled badge mobility car for Oliver, and his disability can be invisible in a similar way, and nobody's ever challenged us on it. But when we've taken up a disabled parking bay on the occasions where we've managed when the old days when we used to get him out, that's another story because he doesn't go anywhere anymore since COVID, but we used to get some funny looks like, what are you doing with that disabled badge? And it makes you feel awful. It really does. But you just learn to brush it off and know that actually we do deserve this. We are living with something very, very life changing and living with different challenges. So, but it is hard, isn't it? So
it is. But I think it's one of the silver linings to COVID. One of the very few silver linings to COVID is companies being better about remote working, flexible hours, not just for anyone who's got a disability, but for working mums or anyone who has kids, single dads, like having the flexibility and showing that we can still be productive while, living lives which are comfortable for us and more suitable to us. I think that's been wonderful as an outcome of this pandemic.
Definitely. More productive, if anything.
Yeah.
Our company anyway has performed better since the pandemic than it ever has before. I don't know if that just says a lot about people in the office chatting away to each other, not doing any work. But yeah, it's true. And I always bring up TikTok because I love TikTok. But I have an account where I talk about technology and tech career and remote working. And it was quite, you get the good and bad side of TikTok, but I did a video about, there's a customer who is forcing people to go back into the office 5 days a week. And what they're doing is trying to find loopholes around the technology to stop people from accessing Teams and whatever they need outside of work, not on site and not on corporate devices. So they're and that's what the technology is designed for, that remote collaboration. You can work from anywhere. And so they're trying to go around it. I made a video about it, and there was loads of people who were saying, yeah, I would quit if that happened. Like, I would just leave. There's no way. There were so many people who were saying we need that flexible option. But then there was the other side of people who said, well, it's not your company, so you have to go in if you said you would go in before the pandemic. Some people said, good luck finding a new job. You're going to be unemployed. And there was, they were really funny. I just thought I was like, that's so extreme. Like, you're going to get outsourced to India then in that case if you're remote working. I was like, Jesus, you're really not providing any value then if your job is going to get outsourced so quickly. But yeah, I think the consensus is that remote working works, I guess, is the...
I can understand, though, for extroverts, it must be quite difficult. Especially any extroverts who live alone. I can't imagine how they've been coping the last couple of years. I'm a massive introvert, so it is all sympathy and no empathy there, unfortunately. Well, fortunately in my case, because it makes remote working really easy. But I can imagine the pandemic's been very, very hard for certain people.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to my fiance, like, either today or yesterday about that. And I always said, I think I'm an extrovert because I like, talking to people, and I'm quite good in a social situation or from networking, or, I can just do it. It's fine. It comes quite naturally. But I like being on my own quite a lot as well. I don't like being around other people too much. And I was like, maybe I'm somewhere in the middle, because it's funny how the difference between introvert and extrovert. I always thought if you're just chatty and outgoing, you must be an extrovert. And if you're quiet, you must be an introvert. But it's not really. It's just where you get your energy from. So like an extrovert needs other people around to really thrive, whereas an introvert needs that downtime and that space to thrive. So, and I was like,
you're an ambivert.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the middle. Yeah, I was literally talking about that the other day. It's quite funny.
I'm an introvert, but I'm an introvert who never shuts up.
We're conflicted introverts. We like to talk to people, but it's really tiring.
Exactly. But I think I don't know if I already mentioned, I was at my first in-person event last week for 2 years, and I found it better than I thought it was going to be. But I did need just little moments here and there where I just needed to step away from the crowds and get a quiet space and go back to my room or something like that and get some quiet moments. So yeah, that's the introvert in me sort of becoming dominant.
Going back to the conference very quickly, I think that's probably how you can tell that it's run by a couple of introverts, is that we have a quiet room for anyone who wants to get away from the conference and just sit in silence for a bit.
Amazing.
Which is really popular, which makes it a little bit contradictory. But yeah, it's quite a few people just go away to just get away from people.
Yeah, I think they did that at Comsverse as well. They said because we're coming out of a situation where we haven't been around people, it's overwhelming. So, and for those who maybe have sensory, they're affected by different senses and noise, and, they can go into that quiet space. And, even if those who don't, you just go in and chill out for a minute and just, and you just not talk to someone for 2 minutes and then recharge and get back out there.
Back when I did my degree, we had a couple of rooms where we'd bring in various autistic children to talk to and examine. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And in these rooms, we also had these weighted blankets for helping with some of the sensory issues. Wow. The amount of times you'd walk in there and it'd just be a PhD student crying under this blanket.
I bought one.
It's like a hug.
I bought one because I had anxiety and I wasn't sleeping. So I thought, oh God, what can I do? So I bought a weighted blanket, and it's absolutely game changer.
They're brilliant, aren't they?
They're really, really just like, when you're just about and you sit and you're maybe watching TV or something in bed and I'm just feel myself tensing. I'm just like my jaw's tensed and I'm tensed and I don't realize I'm doing it. And I just feel like, oh gosh. And then the blanket just holds you down and gets rid of that tension. And yeah, Pete, if you don't have one, I swear, get one. They're great. You get them on Amazon. Yeah. Oh, you got them. Yeah.
In our house. No, all of us got one.
Really good.
Yeah, we know all about weighted blankets. We've got all sorts of sensory toys over the years as well. Lots of different textures to play with and lights and all that sort of stuff. We've tried every sort of therapy going for Oliver's journey. But yeah, weighted blankets are awesome.
Everyone needs one.
Definitely. I did want to ask actually about because I'm just conscious of the time. So your MVP award. Can you tell us a little bit about your MVP journey? Because I'm a very, very new MVP, just awarded in March, so not very long at all. Thank you. So I was so happy. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, but what's your experience been like? Have things changed since you've become MVP, or what was the journey up to become an MVP? It'd be great to find out a little bit more.
All great questions. So I'm hoping for year 3 we'll find out July the 1st. Oh, tense. I've been an MVP for a couple of years, which, if you haven't figured out what the timing means, that MVP Summit normally happens over in America in the beautiful offices over there. And I have not been able to go there because of COVID, which is the one downside to the timing of this. But I absolutely love the MVP community. There's been so much opportunity through getting involved with the MVP program in terms of meeting people like Peter, to going to meetups, to talking on here. It's a very supportive community. And I can't rate it high enough, to be honest. But getting into the program was quite difficult. I was working in .NET. I ran the meetup. I just started the conference, or was just about to start the conference at the time. And I've been doing some speaking. I like to talk, as you know. So sometimes I do that on stage. But with the MVP program, it can be quite hard to identify the value you're providing into the tech community. Particularly, it's changing a bit now, I think, but particularly back then, it was very much associated with Microsoft products. So is it PowerPoint? Is it .NET Core, etc.? And I talked to Claire, who's our amazing community manager for the UK and Ireland, and said to her, you know, I'm doing mentorship, I'm doing events, I'm doing all of this very kind of community-based, people-based stuff, which isn't necessarily attached to a product. What do I do? And she walked me through how to fill in a form, because she said it's all very valuable. It's just the form isn't right for getting those kind of people in. And I think they're making adjustments now, which is great. But I don't think I would have managed to get into the program if it hadn't been for Claire's help and guidance on that. So I think probably one of the key learnings there is you do have to do everything out of hours. It can't be in work hours, which I don't think is talked about very much. But if you are doing things which are not directly Microsoft related, but are helping the community, you still are in with the chance of becoming an MVP. So it's worth exploring those options.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I think... Oh, go on, sorry, Peter.
No, you go on.
I was going to say, one thing I found was I kind of knew what to do. I just didn't know how much or for how long. And some people said, you know, one of the old MVPs at Core said, 6 months I did stuff. And then other people have said 6 years. And other people have said 12 months. I think the golden rule is over the last 12 months. You look at your contributions. But I was like, how much is too much or not enough? So, you know, are we talking 1,000 blogs, or are we talking 10 blogs? Like, is there a scale? What's the scale? And I did ask Claire, and she kind of was like, well, other things that like if you do a conference and you speak at a conference, it's worth, you know, you might have a bigger reach than you would maybe on a blog. So other things hold different weights as well. So I made a video on my TikTok account as well, guys. If you want to follow, please feel free to. I'm trying to grow my following on exactly what I did and how much stuff, how many blogs, how many speaking slots, how many videos, how many podcasts, you know, to just give people an idea of what it takes to do it. And I think the key thing that you said is out of hours. Yes, weekends and evenings will be used in becoming MVP and being a part of, you know, the MVP community. But I think if you go out with the approach of I'm just doing this for that badge, it's not going to last, because you have to want to do it, because you are going to take up evenings and weekends. And it took me a while to actually manage my time around that. I just said yes to everything, and I just burnt out and cried, and it just took a bit of time.
One thing I'm trying to encourage other organisers to do at the moment, we started to do this in .NET Knots, is, as you know, Kat and Peter, once you're an MVP, you still have to fill in this form with what you're doing and how many people attended and where's the link. So whenever we have someone who's speaking who either wants to become an MVP or is an MVP, we send them the snippet about what the talk was about, what the link was, how many people attended, so they can just copy paste it into the form.
Nice.
Because it's a nightmare filling in that thing.
I know. And then you have times where you say you do blog posts. It's like one line item. So you've got blog post, how many blogs? Sorry, I've done 20 blogs. But then, you know, you might do a cut. So you have to kind of wait to do batches of blogs that you're adding in, and it takes up all that. Anyway, we're not here to complain about the form of the MVP world. But having that insight, I guess, makes you quite a good candidate for the, you know, organizing the type of event, because you'll know the challenges that speakers and, you know, people trying to be MVP face to make it easier for them. So that's good.
There is one challenge we haven't talked about, is that you can't become an MVP without knowing an MVP.
That is true. Yeah.
Or a Microsoft employee, isn't it?
Yes, true.
Full-time Microsoft employee can nominate you as well.
Yeah. I think I reached out to a couple of MVPs on LinkedIn. Just said, please, can I speak to you just for 2 minutes and find out what it's all about? But it was you, Pete, who reached out. So it's about other MVPs, you know, encouraging and seeing people. And are you nominated yet? I was like, no.
I just kept on seeing all this great stuff you were doing on LinkedIn. I said, who's this cat? She looks amazing at all this content. So I thought, she's got to be on the MVP. And I was surprised when you said you hadn't yet been nominated. So it's one of the best things I've ever done, reaching out to you. And look at us now on the same show. So.
Love it. We've got a little family going, little Cloud Conversations family.
We've got a great little family. We've got Rue and Azure as well, and we've grown it. And who knows? We might grow it some more. You never know.
Definitely.
But anyhow, conscious of time, as Kat was saying, and before we wind things up, though, what do you like to do in your spare time, Jess? What's your hobbies, interests? We talk a lot about movies, music, anything that people like to crafts do in their spare time. What does that mean to you?
I have too many hobbies. It's a problem. I play guitar. I have just got into cross stitching, so I've been doing little cross stitch portraits for my friends.
Cool.
I read a lot. I like my garden. I think I have a problem. I can't concentrate on any one thing. And then, as you say, like a lot of the extracurriculars take up quite a bit of free time as well, trying to keep stay in the MVP program and helping do the mentorship and everything else. As you say, Kat, though, it's not trying to stay in the MVP program. It's like the MVP program is a benefit of all the stuff that I enjoy doing, which is the community aspects. But yeah, I have quite a few hobbies. I'm looking around because I've got like my cross stitch stuff over there and the guitars over there.
You sound very much like my wife, Louise. She has a ton of hobbies. I mean, Louise and I have been together for 20 so years now. And during that time, she's been a yoga teacher, a Slimming World consultant. She's been a web designer, a craft business owner, sort of selling wool and patterns, and she's now sort of reviving her passion for art and design. So as we speak right now, she's sitting in our kitchen dining room with a bunch of canvases and painting with twigs and stuff. And the stuff she makes is absolutely incredible. I'm so proud of what she does. Everything she applies herself to, she just launches into it. And so yeah,
see, that's the difference. I'm a jack of all trade, master of none. I do everything at a mediocre level.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure you are absolutely brilliant at everything you do. But I don't really have any. This kind of is my hobby, this community. Apart from this, sort of my work and my job sort of overlap quite a fair bit. Other than that, I watch a lot of science fiction on TV and film, and I go for walks, and I'm dad's taxi, and pretty much it for me. But I'm happy like that.
There is
Louise
one
always tells
mystery
me I
about
need
you,
something
Peter.
else. So again,
there's one mystery about you that I've been meaning to ask for ages.
All right.
How do you keep your hair so soft? And
do you know
Your
what?
hair always
That is a
looks
valid
good.
question, because it's always silky smooth. There's no frizz, there's no oil. all these women are just hating on you because we just can't. I just can't get the balance.
Pretty much, like every selfie I see on Twitter, I'm like, how is he doing this with his hair?
Glowing.
You're out in the wind, and there's not a stray strand anywhere.
It's not always the case. I mean, it is naturally thick and grey. And I have been. When I don't go to the barbers much anymore, but when I used to before I grew it out, there was a hairdresser adjacent to the barbers, and the hairdresser came through once, and she just took a double take at me in shock and came over to me and said, "Your hair is amazing. I've got ladies who pay a fortune for that." Yep. So, but it's just I take after my dad. My dad's about 85 now, and he's still like the mad scientist. He's got big grey hair out. His hair's sort of naturally curly, whereas mine's straight. But so I'm just
genetics, is it then?
Yeah, I mean today this is just. I got up this morning when I got ready, washed my hair, bit of Head and Shoulders, blow dry it, and I didn't put any product on today because I'm not really going anywhere. I've got this awesome. Sometimes I'll put a bit of saltwater tonic into it and dry that in, and that works pretty well. What I will do, if I tie my hair back, it's so thick and grey, I'll put the saltwater tonic on and comb it and then tie it back, and that holds it in place. And later on in the day, when I take that out, it just drops down and it feels amazing.
And there's me spending hundreds of pounds on designer shampoo and treatments and goodness me. So
and I sort of switch.
Head and Shoulders.
In the shower, there's the Head and Shoulders that Louise uses, and there's a Lynx shower gel stroke shampoo that my oldest son George uses, and I just reach for whichever one I use both. And it just there's no exact science to it. And I do have one other product I use, which I can't remember the name of it now, but my barber he always sort of gets me onto the new products, and it's another sort of water-based spray thing that holds it in place really, really well. But because when it's windy, honestly, it may look like it's always in place, but it goes everywhere. On a windy walk, and got head down. Trapped in my glasses, and so
I'm just pretty sure that your hair's magic, Peter. I've been jealous of it for ages.
Wow, that is such a lovely thing to say. It's such a topic. It's funny you should. I just posted a tweet about that because the last show that we did was a walk and talk with Kev McDonnell and at the offsite with a company that I work at, and so many people actually did say that they'd seen my hair on video and such like, but in real life they couldn't believe it. It was described as magnificent, which I was
magnificent mane. Love it.
Oh, so there you go. But photos of me sort of 10 years or so ago when I didn't have the beard, didn't have glasses, and I had short hair.
If you look like a different person.
I know. People I worked with said they saw pictures of me on my Facebook that I don't really go on much anymore, but and they couldn't believe that was me. If I sort of shaved it all off now and walked into the office, nobody would know who I was.
Yeah, get away with the perfect crime there. change your identity just by giving yourself a little shave.
But well, there you go. But thank you so much. That was a lovely thing to say. That's made my day.
I'm glad it's made your day. I'm just gutted that there's no secret to it.
Yeah, I know. We're like, tell us the shampoo that you use.
So sorry. I do. I mean, Louise just rolls her eyes at me because I'm very aware of my hair. I've always got a comb. I've got a or a brush of some sort. This is a really good. This is a beard comb actually, but it's very good for the hair as well. So I've always got one to hand, and always be prepared. But yeah, it just is what it is, I'm afraid. I wish I could tell you there's some sort of secret sauce or product, but
luck.
It's just.
And I'm sorry, Kat. I totally interrupted about you being asked about your hobbies as well, but I just needed to know.
No, that's all right. I guess I'm the same as Pete. I'm a big film buff. I did film in university and school and stuff, so I've got a bit of a passion for movies. But yeah.
What's your movie recommendation for this week then?
Okay, so I went to see I forgot its name now. I saw it like last week. That's ridiculous. The Viking film with the North Hunter, I think it's called. It's in the cinema, and it's about the Vikings, and it's got one of the oh god, I'm losing my whole mind here. It's got this amazing actor in it. He was in Jungle Book or something like that, the Jumanji or Tarzan. He was in the Tarzan films. Oh my God, you can tell it's the end of the day. And he's in it. He's amazing, and it's really dark, and it's just it looks incredible. The acting's amazing, the writing's amazing. Yeah, very, very good film. So make sure you go see that in cinema if you're all about the Vikings, which I'm playing
Most
Valhalla
people
at the
are.
moment. Yeah, I'm playing Valhalla, so I'm into my Vikings at the moment. But yeah.
Seems pretty current, doesn't it? Viking stuff. It's well in at the moment.
Mm.
But, I just noticed, actually, Kat, your hair's growing out a bit now, isn't it? Because you got it cut into the short bob for your Pulp Fiction fancy dress, didn't you?
I did.
Last year, wasn't it?
I feel uncommitted, yeah. But I did like the hairstyle. I just you got to time out girls' hair. So I'm getting married in July, and I want it dyed and I want it cut, but I don't want to do it too soon because then I'll have to pay twice for an expensive haircut in too close a time period. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting until like the end of June to then get my hair cut. So I will get it short again, but women's haircuts are very expensive and getting it dyed and stuff. So you don't want to pay that money twice when you don't have to. So it's going to be long for a little while, but in July it'll be short again.
Yeah,
so don't you worry.
Hey, God, it's coming up. It's coming up fast, isn't it? Are you all? Do you think you're all set? Have you all the important things dressed and all that?
No, nothing. Literally nothing. Well, I'm just gonna wear like a white short dress. It's not gonna be a wedding dress. I'm going to Las Vegas to get married.
Right,
amazing.
Cool,
yeah. So it's really casual, and we've just got our immediate family going. It's not like a big thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty chilled. Although my passport is in a queue at the moment of coming, so we'll see if that comes on time. I know there's a bit of issues with passports, but yeah, all good.
Louise and I
had an amazing time.
Yeah,
sorry?
Absolutely.
I just said have amazing time. It sounds
really
great.
Thank you, sorry. I think I've delayed a little bit.
No, I think we both spoke at the same time there as well. I was just going to make it about me again. Louise and I had the big wedding back in 2005, and all the family there, a ton of people that I didn't know, and we often talk about the fact that we just sometimes wish we just eloped and done it. Just the two of us, but it was a great day though. So I love what you're doing. I think it's a great way to do it, and more power to you. So
plus the fact if it's a nice short dress that's quite casual, you can dye it if you want and just wear it out afterwards.
Yeah, rewear it. Also, when you talk about as soon as you put wedding in front of anything, it becomes a lot more expensive. So we'd rather spend our money for a week in Las Vegas, as like a honeymoon, get married. And put money towards buying a house.
Cool. A sustainable fashion. I love that because that's a big thing at the minute, isn't it? Sort of re-wearing stuff or renting occasion wear instead of buying it and that sort of thing. So cool. Absolutely love it. But wow, we've covered some topics today, haven't we? We've been right through some interesting stuff. Jess, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join us on the show, and we could talk quite a deal more about it, but we must let you get on with your day.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you'd have me back, I would come back anytime to talk to both
anytime. You're always welcome. We will definitely have you back without a doubt. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners and viewers, and how can they reach you if they want to get in touch?
Best way to reach me is on Twitter normally, so Jess P. White is my handle. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but I tend to lose messages on there because there's a lot of recruiters. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, do look at the DDD Midlands conference. We're always looking for support, and we love anyone to come along to that. And just thank you for having me on the show. It's been great fun.
No worries. We'll put the notes as well for the links for the conference in the show notes as well, so people can register.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So let's take this one home. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/c/cloud conversations. Nearly got that out. We're also on Twitter at cloudcons365. On our YouTube, please like and subscribe. That subscribe button does so much for us, and there will be a giveaway when we reach 500 subscribers. You do have to be a subscriber to qualify for that though, but we're getting there. So Jess, thank you again so much. Kat, as always, a pleasure, and we shall see you down the road. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Amazing. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.